Hello, thank you for stopping on my video. My name is Becky and this is BecxReadz. I post videos every 5 days, and if I can manage, I will squeeze some in between. And today is the start of another themed vlog. I am starting a Mafia Romance reading vlog this weekend because it is the Mafia Romance Readathon hosted by Jenn at the Book Refuge, Jackie at First Lady Reads, Rachel at Rachel Reads and Sings, and Joe at Not So Average Joe. All of them will be linked down below. I'm participating very loosely. Like, I'm not trying to fulfill any of the prompts or anything. I'm just trying to get some Mafia Romance read. I will be starting off the weekend by reading Scribd Regrets by Adelaide Forrest. This is the 5th book in her Bellendy Crime Syndicate series, and I love this Mafia Romance series. It's probably my favorite. So I am going to start off with this one, and I will give you my thoughts once I am probably done with it, because this tends to be a series where once I start a book, I just can't put it down. It is the 4th today, and I am starting the Mafia Romance Readathon. I actually started it yesterday afternoon, which is when I filmed the intro clip to this, because I wanted to get a head start on it, because I want to get as many Mafia Romance books read as I can in this time frame. So I finished reading Scribd Regrets by Adelaide Forrest, and in this we're following Scar, who his real name is Paulo, but they call him Scar. He grew up in a very abusive... It's really hard to make food and talk at the same time. I'm having some cocoa wheats for breakfast. God, Becky, stay on topic. Okay, so he grew up in a very, very abusive childhood. We're talking like 7-year-old boy being sold for rape by his drug addict parents. And he is trying to keep his little sister safe and alive, and he ends up on the streets because why wouldn't he in that situation? And the Bellendy family finds him and they take him in, and because he's a good fighter, he like got some anger in him. They exploit that and they use him, and so he becomes part of their family. And now he's an adult and he has severe trauma problems. He doesn't like to be touched. He's very like unfeeling, very emotionless, but he has sort of connected with a couple of the members of the family, but he doesn't like to be touched. He doesn't feel like he'll ever be loved. And in comes Irina, who is the judge's daughter, who is sort of in their crime family pocket. And she has some issues of her own. Her mother abandoned her when she was a child, and she is suffering from, what's it called? Borderline personality disorder. So she feels things extremely extreme. So she's on medication for that. She has some like suicidal ideation. She never thinks she's good enough for people. And so they have a connection, she and Scar do. And they're very attracted to one another, but he keeps pushing her away because he doesn't feel like he's capable of giving her the kind of love that she deserves. So when she is captured by their enemy and brutally raped, that is when Scar finally pulls his head out of his ass and realizes that she is worth killing for, and he wants to be a part of her life, and he is going to claim her. So he goes on a rescue mission to get her back. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I like the overly possessive "you're mine" character. He does have some dominant tendencies, so the smut in here, good stuff, good stuff. I would give it probably about 3 to 4 chili peppers worth of steam in this one, because the smut is, it's good stuff. I like that both of these characters had some trauma that they have to work through, and they work through it together. I really like the family dynamic of this series, and this series is an anomaly for me because while I love Mafia Romance, whenever I start a series, there's always seems to be one book in a series that I end up DNFing because it's too much for me to deal with. Like, a male main character is overly controlling, or it's just too dark for my little delicate soul. But for some reason, every book in this series, I just fly through. I eat them up. I haven't missed a single book in this series. I love that these people are slicey and dicey and have no problem torturing their enemies. And this author, I kind of question her sanity, because the way she writes a torture scene, holy shit. I mean, it's brutal, but because they're torturing the bad people, I'm kind of like, give me more. Show me more of this gruesomeness. Like, the inventive ways that it's so good. The only reason I gave it 4.5 stars instead of 5 is because I did feel like Scar and Irina didn't have the best chemistry. They definitely had some, but it could have been better. First book in the Mafia Romance Readathon, done. It's a success. I am caught up on this series right now. I don't know what I'm gonna read next. I was looking, there's a couple books I want to read, but I was also just like scrolling through Kindle Unlimited looking for some good Mafia romances. And I found this one. I can't remember the title. I'll put the cover image here. It's not very long, but it's a mafia fantasy with a witch. So I'm gonna give this a go because it just sounds fucking cool. I can't remember exactly what it's about, but reading the synopsis, I was like, hell yeah, I want to read that. I'm gonna start this and I will give you my thoughts once I'm done. This is a short 195-page story about a witch named Evelina who is trying to escape an abusive relationship. So she stows away into this carriage to get to a different part of this territory. And when the carriage stops to pay like a toll, the guy gets out, he opens the door, she runs into him, and immediately he is like, I want her. She's got a nice ass, nice tits, nice hair. I want her. And that's literally how he decides he wants her. His name is Yavin and he is a human, but he is part of like the mob in this world. He smuggles a lot of things into this city where he lives. One of the things he smuggles is face shrooms instead of mushrooms. It's so stupid. Evelina ends up in this same town. She ends up finding a job and she ends up getting the like charity of somebody, and they help her find a place to live. And he ends up tracking her down and bringing her to his house and pretty much claiming her as his future wife. This story is very light on the fantasy and very light on the mafia, to be quite honest. It doesn't delve too far into like this world and the fantastical elements into it. We hear things of dwarves and fae and witches, but the most magic that we see is the witch magic and how different witches have different powers within this world. And Evelina can see sort of the future through currents that she can see. I don't know, it wasn't explained very well. I really didn't understand it all that much, but she could see the future pretty much. And as far as the mafia goes, it's very light as well. We really don't see much of anything happening other than Yavin sort of talking to his brothers about things that are going on and trying to keep their mob family on top of the other mob families in this world. And a couple times we will see him go out and like kill somebody. So if you're looking for a mafia romance, I don't recommend this one because it's not all that mafia. If you're looking for a fantasy romance, I don't recommend this one because it's not all that fantastical. But if you're looking for a light read, a quick read that has a little bit of some BDSM elements to it, you might give this one a go. I thought it was a unique concept to try and merge the fantasy with the mafia, and I think this would be a really cool concept if it could be done in a better way, in a more fleshed out way, in a more dark and gruesome way. But I did like that this story balanced out the plot with the romance. Neither one of them is too heavily over the other. The plot isn't that thick of a plot, but it's there. And the romance elements, while it is insta-love, I didn't enjoy that fact. I did like that we got to know the characters, and while they are fucking each other, they're at least trying to get to know one another, and I liked the incorporation of the BDSM elements into it. They have decent chemistry. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but it's good enough. So 3 stars is what it got from me. It was okay while I was reading it. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to my next book in this Mafia Romance Readathon, and I am going to start Fractured Souls by Neva Altej. This is her latest book in her imperfect perfections. I still don't know that freaking series name. And it is the latest, so if I can get this one read, I will be caught up with it. Friday night, and I just finished reading Fractured Souls by Neva Altej. This is about Asia, not sure how you say her name, but she is 18 years old and she has just been captured and put into sex slavery. She's been brutally raped and she just escapes. She runs out into the road and Pavel almost hits her and he gets her and he takes her back to his place and he helps heal her. So she is dealing with a lot of trauma. I liked how her trauma was depicted because it's a lot different from a lot of other ways that I've seen trauma in books. She clings. That's how she deals with her trauma. She latches onto Pavel and he is like the first person who she feels safe with. And so she clings to him. I liked her character growth within the story. She really comes out of her trauma and she deals with it a lot. I would have liked it if she would have gone and sought professional help and spoken to a psychologist or a therapist or something. I wish that would have been woven into the story. I also really liked that this romance between Pavel and Aja, it was very respectful and he took his time with her. It is a slow burn and he really sought out her consent before he did things. He made sure that she felt safe in what they were doing as their relationship progressed, whether it was just like holding her hand or having sex. You know, he was always like, tell me if you're uncomfortable and I will stop. And I really liked that. However, I didn't feel any chemistry between these two. I thought it was just very bland. Even their smut scenes, they had a few of them. They weren't anything wow to me. They weren't even very emotionally impactful for me. And I felt like they should have been because she's coming out of this trauma and he's helping her with it. And I feel like I should have felt some sort of chemistry and connection between them, and I didn't. This also has one of my least favorite relationship dynamics to read about in any contemporary, and that is the age gap with the teenage love interest. I don't like them. I don't like them at all. She's 18 and it might be legal, but she just came out of this very traumatic situation, and to have her cling to this 33-year-old man, it grosses me out. I hate reading teenagers as a love interest with a much older age gap. Like if he had been like 22, 24, I might have been able to enjoy it a little bit more, but when it's that big of an age gap, I always just feel like there's this power imbalance in a relationship with contemporaries. And I don't know why, and I've mentioned this, but if you give me a fantasy romance and you give me like a 19-year-old character with like a 500-year-old immortal, I don't have a problem with that. I can separate that in my brain and be like, oh, this isn't real. But if you give me a contemporary where it's set in a place I can actually go, and you're dealing with people who are dealing with real situations that real people could be in, and you want to be sympathetic to people who have been in that same situation, it's hard for me to separate that when it's contemporary, because it's like, so much of this story could be real, and yet you want me to disregard the fact that this is an 18-year-old with a 35-year-old and be hunky-dory with it, and my brain just can't. It just goes, ew, pedoville. Even if he is like the sweetest guy to her and he treats her with respect, it still just feels gross to me. Does it mean that I won't read those stories? No, because I often do read those stories. Maybe I'm just waiting for the time where my brain just flips its switch and is like, bitch, this is fiction, get over it. But that hasn't happened yet. So at the end of it, I gave this a very low 3-star rating, like barely a 3-star, because it was a quick read and I didn't have any problems getting through it. It just, I feel like I should have been more emotionally impacted by her situation, because I've read other books where characters are dealing with similar trauma and it affects me on an emotional level, but for some reason this just did not work for me. I feel sad about this one because I was really looking forward to it and I was really expecting to enjoy it. So that being said, I'm gonna finish doing my laundry. Apparently I can't hang shit up and talk at the same time. Don't mind my hair. It's at that stage where it's just, it looks like I electrocuted myself, but I don't care. I'm just going with it. So it is Monday. The Mafia Romance Readathon has come and gone. I did not get anything read Saturday, hardly anything read Sunday. I was so busy. It was so nice out, and when it's nice out, I tend to want to be outside doing stuff. So I did finish another book though. So I had a hell of a time after the books that I read trying to find a Mafia romance that appealed to me. And I DNF'd quite a few of them, like few chapters in, because they just weren't working. So I started Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. This is the second time I've tried Sophie Lark. The first time was with Anastasia. Didn't work out for me. DNF'd it. But I thought I would give this one a try and, you know, see how it went. This is the story of Ada and Colum. They are from rivaling mafia families. Colum is this straight-laced, button-down guy who is trying to win an election so that he can take over more territory and, you know, like, have his way in there. And Ada is this free-spirited, like, really brash, doesn't give a fuck character. So when she ends up sneaking into their house for a party, she ends up stealing a priceless antique of his grandfather's and setting fire to his house. Something happens between their two families and they end up forced into an arranged marriage together. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. I liked the arranged marriage. That is one of my favorite things. I think it adds a lot of tension and you're put in scenarios where your feelings are bound to develop further. I liked the familial dynamics on both sides for them. He has 2 sisters. He's the only brother, and she has brothers and she's the only sister. So I think that meshed well for them and how they interacted with their siblings. I actually think I liked the siblings more than I liked these 2 characters. And I liked that this plot had a lot of action into it. However, I did not feel the strongest chemistry between these characters. I really didn't like Colum and Aiden as characters themselves. Colum is supposed to be this 30-year-old man. He came off as like this 20-year-old pretending to be a bad boy college kid is what he came off as. I'm thinking, I had to actually go back and look to see how old he was because he did not come off as a 30-year-old like badass mafia guy at all. And she just felt more like this like 16-year-old bratty character. I thought their smut scenes were very eye-roll worthy. They felt very clinical and stale. Like I was reading them and my face looked like this the whole time. I will try and continue the series. I mean, we'll see if it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But those were the books that I read for the Mafia Romance Readathon. So let me know down in the comments if you participated, what did you read, or what was the last Mafia romance that you read. And if you have made it this far into the video, could you leave me the knife emoji? Because why not? Knives, Mafia, those go together. And until my next video, go read a Mafia romance for me. Bye.